Prose and Poetry from a Contemplative Life, Book 3 of a Contemplative Life series by Charles F. Harrington. To the reader, thank you for taking the time to read this book of ramblings from me. This is the third book of my Contemplative Life series. Copies are available through Amazon by searching for Harrington and A Contemplative Life. If you prefer to order direct from the author, myself, you can do so by email to cfh95@aol.com. By all means, even if you are not ordering, feel free to drop me a note. I'd love to hear from all of you. You can also watch and listen to my video poems on my YouTube channel at Charles Harrington 1565. Thank you again, and always remember, be brave and choose to be happy. Dedication. To my children, Catherine, William, and Daniel, my life's greatest work and greatest reward. This collection of not-so-random poetic musings is the result of decades of substantial personal growth and development, none of which would have been remotely possible without God's grace and the presence of my children in my life. I have, for the last 30 years, been graced with countless opportunity to learn virtually every day from these kids. My interactions with them have, in my own estimation, directly resulted in my becoming more the man I ever hoped to be. I remain convinced that it was divine intent that I be their father. Being a dad is what I always wanted to be, since I was a very young boy. Being their dad has far exceeded all my wildest hopes and expectations. That is my story, and I'm sticking to it. Preface. This book is the third in a series that I have titled, according to the first one, A Contemplative Life. I knew from the outset that it would be a series of books because I knew I had quite a bit to say. Anyone who knows me at all is not surprised by that assertion. I have spoken and written extensively about my gift of gab. The second book was supposed to be titled A Contemplative Youth, Carrying My Hometown with Me. My intent was to further expand on my own background that was detailed in the first book and expound in greater detail on my life growing up in beautiful Franklin, Massachusetts. That book has yet to be completed. Oh, it is well underway to the tune of about 20,000 words and over 100 pages already compiled, but there is quite a bit more work to be done. I get waylaid by my own propensity to write, by my incessant gift for gab, as it were. I write every day on everything and anything that rumbles around in my head. Poetry fills my mind and spills out of my heart in a steady stream, and when this happens, I am compelled to write it down. Then, because frankly I do enjoy the sound of my own voice, I am further driven to record those poems in a video form with appropriate imagery and upload them to my YouTube channel to share them with the world. The channel is not monetized. There is no profit in it for me. That is not why I do it. I have given away almost as many books as I have sold, and that is a number that has truly and pleasantly surprised me. So the original Book 2 became Book 3 because A Contemplative Heart, a collection of some of my more lovesick poetry, simply had to be published, at least in my own mind. Life continues at a frenzied pace, though even for a retired fellow like myself, and the daily writings continue non-stop, some poetic, some merely commentary and observations on the world and life around me. So this work here, Prose and Poetry from a Contemplative Life, has become the new Book 3. I know, I am as confused as you are at this point. This book, then, is a compilation of thoughts, observations, essays, and poetic musings that have popped into my head over time. To be clear, I make no claim to be right about the things I write about. Rather, my claim is that I think about them, and do so often. I think we all do, but sadly we don't often share our thoughts, not really, and certainly not freely or with abandon. Our current cancel and censorship culture severely discourages freedom of thought, and especially expression. Social media, initially thought to be a terrific opportunity for the sharing of lives, information, and thinking, has proven to be the exact opposite. The herd, or mob mentality, accelerated by algorithms designed to promote groupthink for the purpose of effective marketing and driving profit, has corralled everyone into comfortable little pockets defined by whatever group the user feels most protected in. This, of course, is not just limiting our exposure to the new and creative, but is actually degenerative and self-destructive to a free-thinking, developing society and culture. Rest assured, the original second book will be completed, eventually. I cannot guarantee the date, though, or that something else might sneak out of me in the meantime. In that meantime, this book is simply a compilation of the continuing observations, thoughts, and commentary in a life still being lived well. It is, I hope, a further collection of testimonies that affirm my optimistic and grateful view of my journey, past and present. Stay tuned. I'm not quite finished. Contemplating poetry today. Most people, it seems, do not like poetry. In our modern age, they find it cumbersome and boring. Good poetry often requires effort by the reader, and that just won't do it all. I don't think this was always the case. It is, rather, a product of the world we all now live in, a world of instant gratification. We have no need to be enlightened. We prefer the spotlight. We have no desire for contemplation, but rely solely on confrontation. We see no use in reflection. Life is much easier with only reaction. Poetry is a thinking man's game. Ours is a world too busy with games, too busy gaming, to do any thinking. Poetry often reveals time-honored truth. This has no use in a world of marketing and spin. A world in a spin has no time for truth. Poetry is mental. Some might say cerebral. Ours is a world that is only visual. To not see it is simply, then, to not be it. I don't think it's simply a matter of boredom. I think we have been trained in our modern age to actively abhor it and all of its possibility. Social media states my case perfectly. It is an unending stream of rot and filth, replete with lies, half-truths, and prurient rot. Yet we gobble it up with an appetite never sated. We connect across the world and then set about our own remaking of it. Every dialogue is a stage. Every interaction fits into our own marketing scheme. In poetry, there is little room for posturing. Today's world is nothing but posturing. Every story told has an aim, not to speak, but to be heard, and most of all, to be seen. It's a sad state of affairs to me, a sign of our rot from within. Somewhere along the trail, we passed over the apex, and now we come tumbling down the other side. You see, folks, my poems, more often than not, capture specific moments in time, emotions and feeling deeply felt that without the writing might be lost to the years or failing memory. Once inscribed in poetic verse, they are forever etched into memory and can be called upon and felt again and again. That is how it works for me. As for you, the reader, or in some cases, listener, if you read between the lines or are a little bit clever and empathetic, you might get a glimpse of that precious moment, or perhaps recall one of your very own. That is my hope, anyway. Contemplating truth. Truth is, of course, a time-honored concept, sought throughout the ages, but in reality, seldom ever attained. In our day and age, the idea of truth often gets a bad rap. It is besmirched, shaded, manipulated, and ultimately diminished. That is a sad testament to the state of our world. In truth, we find great strength. It simply cannot be denied. In truth, we find courage, for it empowers us like little else. In truth is the greatest of intimacy. It frees the soul for those who dare embrace it. So many who avoid it find themselves doubting, fearful, and incapable of fully living or even loving. In truth, we find innocence, for we can hold accountable those that expose the truth, but the truth itself cannot be blamed. It is blameless because it is truth. Ultimately, in truth, we find solace, comfort, and peace. Truth is indeed a scary and intimidating proposition, that is for certain. We are only human, and far too often we avoid or shy away from truth for all that it exposes. We have human fears and insecurities that propel us to create facades. Then we are required to expend enormous energies and commitment in the effort to maintain those very facades. This, of course, flies in the face of truth, and we mistakenly believe that it is the easier route to take. That, ironically, is our fallen human nature lying to us. Truth, once embraced, emboldens us, and by its very nature provides all the strength we need to carry on. All truths need not be told, but they must be acknowledged in order to guide us properly on the conduct of our lives. Anything short of that is a slippery slope that leads to lies. Seek truth, scary as it might be. It is the only real way to live. Contemplating our fallen nature. I am certain that I am not the first to think it. Not even close, I bet. But it's worth repeating and recontemplating nonetheless. Those of us in my own generation have reached the point in our lives where looking around and taking stock is simply unavoidable. I imagine mankind has engaged in this same exercise since the beginning of time, and at least from my own current view, has arrived at the same conclusions over and over and over again. We were the ones, finally the ones who would make the difference, weren't we? We had all the advantages, all the information, all the tools, and all the inspirations. How could we not make all the difference? To be sure, previous generations had their own measure of noble intent, but they simply did not have our opportunity or capabilities. Think back at the messages of our era, in the music, the speeches, the movements, the times they were a-changin'. Take a look again now and ask yourself, were they? Have they? Did they? Let's be brutally honest. They have not. Ideas were imagined, spoken, and shared, seemingly on a scale never seen before. The age of Aquarius was dawning, and it was we, in our grand delusion, who were going to bring it all into reality. We failed in that endeavor. We failed miserably. History does repeat itself, but we were foolish enough to believe that this time, our time, would be different. In our elated hubris and youthful optimism, we were blinded to the eternal truth of humanity's fallen nature. We, who supposed ourselves to be so much better, so much smarter, and living in a world so much more ready to evolve, simply repeated the continuing refrain of coming up short and missing the mark. I think perhaps there is a common thread in this continuing saga of failure. The commonality lies in the evolution of a noble idea or intent and its transformation into a movement. Somehow, when the noble spark ignites into collective action, something vital is lost. The evidence for such a theory is repeated throughout human history, over and over and over again. That original idea of noble intent, like a light suddenly turned on in our heads, has more often than not its most profound impact or meaning when it is applied to us as individuals. It strikes a chord within us. We are then almost immediately compelled to share our unique revelation with the world, and if we shout it loud enough, lo and behold, a movement is born. The problem with this sequence of events lies in our individual perspectives. Who looks upon a blade of grass and sees the same thing? That unfortunate truth marks the beginning of the end of our noble and unique stroke of genius. Our very nature, it seems, cannot and will not accept our individuality. Our innate and basic insecurity demands that everyone else see exactly what we have seen, without any deviation from our own view. When that inescapable intrusion of nuance enters the picture, we become frustrated and demanding of recognition, gradually losing sight of that initial spark of truth. Instead of letting our revelation take hold where it might make the most sense, that is, within our very selves, we seek instead to convince the wider world of its importance to them. Ultimately, the noble spark or idea becomes the mantra of the mob, no longer applied to all or any of the individuals, but cast with a finger of harsh incrimination at all of the others who have not yet seen. Such is the perennial failing of our kind. Instead of looking inward and making the change there, we seek instead to impose the change on everyone else, and only then might the idea be deemed valid, and then perhaps assumed worthy of applying finally to ourselves. We continuously place the cart before the horse. My own generation has taken the act of illustrating this faux pas to the most obvious level, though very few, I fear, are even remotely aware of it. We, who have lived through a time of incredible knowledge, capability, and opportunity, with no shortage at all of clarion calls for real and significant change, have simply done again what every other generation before us has already shown us. History teaches us we learn nothing from history. Every generation from the very beginning has been graced with the words of prophets, and they have all repeated the same call to action, over and over and over again. Look first within. It is there we shall find truth. And in every generation, we, the people, have responded shouting, I have found it. Come see what I see. Amidst our shouting, we have already forgotten what it was that we have seen. So now the clock winds down on another generation of humanity, another opportunity wasted and lost. This one in particular stings because in all of our long history, when were we ever given the opportunity on such a universal level? The words of the prophet were written on the subway walls and in tenement halls. Such, in the end, is the very definition of our fallen nature, that which we have been warned of for thousands of years. When we focus on the collective instead of our own selves, we lose sight of the prize. This has been our most consistent modus operandi. the message and warnings are repeated in every generation, and yet we continue to find them and then set about casting their accusations at the rest of the world, ignoring the one in the mirror for whom the message was originally aimed. We're graying now, and a new generation approaches. They will, like all those that have preceded them, be offered the messages and opportunities. The messages will make themselves known in ways that we, the fading enlightened ones, could not even begin to imagine, just as it was for those who preceded us. The question remains then, will they hear the warnings and lessons and apply them where they were intended? Or will they continue our collective human folly and insist on repeating the same old tactic? Look within first. It is there you shall find truth, and it is there that all the real work must begin.